It started with a feeling I couldn't shake, long before I had anything close to proof. You ever have that? That moment your gut speaks up, even though your mind's trying to shut it down? We were driving to this club on the outskirts of Madison. I remember watching her in the passenger seat, legs crossed, checking her lipstick in the visor mirror, humming to some playlist I didn't recognize. She had this energy about her, excited, distant, like she was going somewhere I wasn't invited. That should have been the first clue. She'd brought it up on Thursday night, said she was feeling burnt out, needed to blow off steam. I remember her exact words. I just need a night to feel human again. Let's go somewhere loud, somewhere we can dance. I laughed, assuming she was joking. She hated crowds. But when I looked at her, she wasn't smiling, just sipping wine and staring out the window like she was already planning something. And yet, I went along with it. Because that's what you do when you're married, right? You compromise. You assume the best. You ignore the red flags when they're still pink. The place she picked was loud. Not just music loud, but crowded loud. You had to shout to order drinks. It wasn't our kind of place. We were more low-key. Backyard barbecues, trivia nights, wine bars. But suddenly she wanted bass and strobe lights and people half our age packed in like sardines. I remember watching her when we first walked in. The way she scanned the room. Not aimlessly, like she was soaking it in. Purposefully, like she was searching for someone. I brushed it off. Told myself I was being paranoid. Insecure. Whatever word makes you feel small enough to doubt your own instincts. We danced for a bit, or I tried. She kept checking her phone. Said it was a friend from work texting about some drama. I nodded, pretending to believe her. But I already felt like a stranger. Then she said she was heading to the bar. Want another drink? She asked, already walking away. I told her I was good. She disappeared into the crowd. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I told myself she was just waiting for the bartender. Maybe bumped into someone she knew. I chatted with a guy from her office, someone I'd met at a holiday party. Friendly, harmless. But I kept looking toward the bar, scanning for that familiar silhouette. And then I saw her. Not at the bar. She was at the back of the club, near one of those dim little alcoves people think are private. And she wasn't alone. There was a guy standing in front of her. Tall, clean-shaven, that too casual confidence you see in guys who know they're being watched. His hand rested on her waist, not by accident. Like it had been there for a while and wasn't planning to move. And God, she was smiling. Not the polite smile. Not the one she gives cashiers or coworkers. It was the kind of smile that used to be mine. The one I'd see when I made her laugh mid-argument or pulled her close in the kitchen just because. That real, unguarded smile that says, I'm here. I want to be here. Only she wasn't smiling at me. I froze, heart pounding. I didn't storm over. I'm not that guy. I just watched, waiting for her to notice me, waiting for her to pull away, or even look guilty. She didn't. She leaned in closer, whispered something in his ear. He laughed like whatever she said made his night. And then, she looked up and saw me. No shock, no panic, just a flicker of recognition like she'd forgotten I was there. Then came the smile. This slow, deliberate thing that didn't quite reach her eyes. I walked over, because what else could I do? Every step felt heavier than the last. When I got close, she turned fully toward me, like she'd just run into me by chance. Oh hey, this is Ethan, she said, too brightly. No context. No introduction from him. Just a name thrown out like a shield. I looked at him. He nodded, didn't offer a hand. Just kept that smug half-grin. I said nothing. Can we talk? I asked her, trying to keep it calm. The music was too loud to have a real conversation, but I couldn't stand there and pretend this was normal. She rolled her eyes, and tugged me a few steps away from Ethan. What is your problem? She snapped, as soon as we were out of *T. My problem. Not the hand on her waist. Not the whispering. Not the fact that she disappeared without a word and showed up playing footsie with some guy named Ethan. No, the issue was me. For noticing. I saw you, I said. I saw the way he touched you. Her expression didn't soften. You're being paranoid. It was harmless. Then why didn't you pull away? She threw up her hands. Because I was trying to enjoy myself for once. I wanted to dance, to have fun, and you're here making it weird. I'm making it weird? I repeated. Yes, you are, she snapped. You don't know how to relax anymore. You've been so suffocating lately, watching me like I'm doing something wrong every time I leave the room. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. She was spinning it so fast I almost got dizzy. This isn't about me not relaxing, I said quietly. It's about you lying. I didn't lie. You said you were going to the bar. I was going to the bar, she said, crossing her arms. But I ran into Ethan and we started talking. While he had his hand on your waist? She rolled her eyes again, and I swear I saw something colder in her stare this time. You're being dramatic. He's just a friend. A friend you've never mentioned. A friend who holds you like that in public while you're wearing your wedding ring. She looked down, and for the first time, I noticed she wasn't wearing it. The ring. The one we picked out together. The one she wore every day for 5 years. Gone. Where's your ring? I asked, heart dropping. She hesitated. It didn't match the outfit. Didn't match the outfit. That was the moment. Not the club. Not the guy. Not even the hand on her waist. That was when it hit me. She wasn't lost. She wasn't confused. She was already gone. The drive home that night was so quiet I could hear the tick of the blinker echo inside the car. She stared out the window like nothing had happened. Like I was the one making things weird. The club lights still danced in my eyes, and the silence between us was heavier than anything we'd ever said out loud. I didn't speak. Not because I didn't have questions, but because I already knew the answers. Not all of them, sure, not yet, but enough to feel it. Enough to see the truth in the spaces between words. And once you start looking for something, it's impossible not to see it everywhere. That night, lying in bed next to her while she scrolled through her phone, I started seeing in reverse. That's the only way I can describe it. Like rewinding a movie and realizing all the plot twists were there from the beginning. You just weren't paying attention. The first thing I remembered was the phone. 6 months ago, she used to leave it on the table, screen up, never locked. She'd even hand it to me when she couldn't remember something. Babe, check my texts for the name of that sushi place. No hesitation. No codes. No secrets. Then one day it started flipping screen down. I remember the first time I noticed it. We were having dinner. I'd made pasta. She was telling me about a coworker who'd gotten fired, and her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, flipped it over, and kept talking. I didn't think much of it at the time. Why would I? It's such a small thing. But small things in hindsight are never small. After that, the pattern set in. Every notification flipped face down. Every call that came in while we were together ignored or silenced. Once, I asked her who it was, and she brushed it off. Just spam, she said. They've been calling all week. Then came the late nights. First, it was work. Always work. We've got a product launch coming. The team's behind on a deadline. They're having me stay later just for a while. I believed her. Of course I did. She was ambitious. She'd always cared about her job. I didn't want to be the insecure husband who accused his wife of cheating just because she worked hard. So I supported her. Cooked dinner when she was late. Did the laundry. Tried not to be clingy when she walked in at 10 p.m. Exhausted but distracted. But even then, something had shifted. She'd stopped asking about my day. Stopped leaning into me when we sat on the couch. Stopped reaching for my hand in the car, like she used to. And I blamed myself. Thought maybe I'd gotten boring. That maybe I'd let life dull us. I tried to fix it. Took her out to dinner more often. Left her notes. Bought her flowers just because. I thought maybe she just needed reminding. But the more I gave, the less she responded. I remembered one night in particular. She came home late, and I had candles lit, her favorite music playing, her plate still warm in the oven. She smiled. A hollow, polite smile, and said, "You didn't have to do all this." She barely touched her food. Barely touched me. Said she was tired and went to bed early. I stayed downstairs that night, alone with my thoughts and the flicker of candlelight that suddenly felt pathetic. And then there was the perfume. It was subtle at first, a different scent lingering when she walked by. Not stronger, just different. Not the bottle on her dresser. I knew that one. I'd bought it for her birthday 2 years ago. This new one was sharper, bolder, the kind you wear to be noticed. I asked her about it once, casually. She laughed it off. Said a friend had given her a sample and she was just trying it out. But she never let me see the bottle. And after that, it became her regular. Then the gym started. She'd always been on and off with workouts, yoga, walks around the neighborhood, an occasional class with friends. But now it was sudden and intense. 5 nights a week. New clothes, new water bottle, new obsession. Late-night workouts, even on weekends. She'd come home flushed, claiming she felt amazing. I tried to be supportive, said I was proud of her for sticking with it. But every time I asked if she wanted a workout buddy, she said no. It's my me time, she told me. I need the space. One time I offered to pick her up. Said I'd be in the area and could swing by. She got oddly defensive. Said her routine was unpredictable, that I shouldn't bother. And her gym bag, it started going from the car straight to the laundry, never left out. Like she didn't want me to see what was in it, or what wasn't. I'm not proud of this, but I once checked the mileage on her car before she left for the gym. I Googled the route to her fitness center. It should have been 7. For miles round trip. When she got back, the trip meter said 18. I said nothing. I kept collecting, storing details in my head like pins on a corkboard. Things I would have once dismissed as paranoia, now forming a map. There was the cake. That one really stuck with me. 3 months ago, I got a delivery confirmation on my email. An order we'd placed together through a shared account. A specialty cake from this boutique bakery she loved. The kind of thing you have to pre-order. But when I asked her about it, she looked confused. Said it was probably a glitch. I don't remember ordering anything, she said. But the charge was there. The confirmation. The pickup date. No name on the order. Just custom note. Blank. I asked again. She shrugged and said maybe she'd ordered it for work. That it must have slipped her mind. But the day it was picked up, she didn't go to work. She took a mental health day. Said she stayed home, but she was gone from 11 to 4. When I asked where she went, she said errands. Just running around. I nodded. Didn't ask further. What was the point? Then came the seminar. She told me about it a month before it happened, a weekend conference in Milwaukee. Women in Leadership, hosted at a hotel downtown. She was excited. Said it would be good for her resume for networking. I said I was proud of her. Helped her pack. Watched her roll up her blazer and tuck it next to her heels. She left on a Friday morning. Promised to check in. But she didn't. Not really. A few short texts. One blurry selfie of her at the event, smiling with 2 women I didn't recognize. Then she went silent. No calls. No evening updates. When I texted, she said she was exhausted from all the panels. When she came back Sunday night, she seemed different, calm, detached. Not like someone who had spent the weekend at lectures. More like someone who had made a decision and come home already knowing how the next few weeks would play out. And I think that's when I stopped being in the picture. I didn't know the details yet, but I knew enough. Knew that something was unraveling, and she wasn't interested in stopping it. The seminar trip was 3 weeks before the club. 3 weeks before Ethan. And suddenly everything before that, the gym, the phone, the cake, the perfume, snapped into place. It wasn't random. It wasn't stress or burnout or distance. It was preparation. I didn't confront her after the club. I didn't demand explanations or force late-night confessions. Something in me had gone quiet, like a switch had been flipped. I wasn't angry yet. I was alert. And once that happens, you stop reacting and start observing. 2 days passed. She acted normal. Too normal. Cheerful even. Asked me what I wanted for dinner. Told me a story about a coworker like nothing in our lives had shifted. I watched her the way you watch someone through glass already separated. On Tuesday morning, She left her bag by the door. That never happened. She was meticulous about her things. Phone, wallet, keys, always in the same place, always accounted for. But that morning she rushed out, kissed my cheek absently, and said she'd forgotten her charger at the office. The bag stayed behind, slouched against the wall like it didn't belong there. I stared at it for a long time. I told myself not to touch it. Told myself that crossing that line would mean something. That it would change the way I saw myself. But the truth is, that line had already been crossed. Just not by me. I didn't dig through it like some frantic detective. I moved slowly, methodically, like I was already bracing for what I'd find. The receipt was tucked into a side pocket, folded neatly, almost hidden but not quite, like she'd forgotten it existed. Downtown Milwaukee, a hotel I recognized immediately, not cheap, not casual, not something you book by accident. 3 nights, 1 room, her name on the reservation. The dates matched the seminar. I sat down on the edge of the couch and read it again, and again, waiting for my brain to offer an alternative explanation. A glitch, a mistake, anything. Nothing came. There was no ambiguity, no gray area, no maybe. This wasn't a late dinner. This wasn't drinks. This was a hotel room booked in advance for days under her name during a trip she swore was all panels and networking. I put the receipt back exactly where I found it, zipped the bag, placed it back against the wall. Then I stood up and felt something inside me harden. Later that night, I did something I never thought I would do. I accessed the parking footage. The club sat near a mixed-use lot shared with a grocery store and a few offices. A friend of mine handled security for the property. I didn't tell him why I needed it. I didn't have to. I just asked for the timestamp. Saturday night, around midnight. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. I saw us arrive together. I saw me go inside. I saw her follow. And then, an hour later, I saw her leave. Without me. She walked out with him. Ethan. No hesitation. No looking back. They didn't rush. They didn't sneak. He opened her car door. She laughed. The kind of relaxed laugh you have when you're exactly where you want to be. They drove off in separate cars, but in the same direction. I checked the timestamps, tracked both vehicles through the adjacent intersections. At 1:14 a.m., both license plates appeared at the same hotel entrance. The same hotel on the receipt. That was it. There was nothing left to interpret. No context missing. No conversation that could explain it away. The facts stood on their own, clean and brutal. She didn't come home with me that night. She went to him. I closed the footage and sat there in the dark, letting it settle. Strangely, I didn't feel the urge to cry, or scream, or confront her immediately. What I felt was clarity. A rare, sharp kind. Infidelity isn't always discovered through tears or confessions. Sometimes it's just math. Dates lining up, locations overlapping, choices stacking neatly on top of each other until denial has nowhere left to hide. When she came home that night, she smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek, asked if I wanted takeout. I looked at her and realized something unsettling. She thought she was still in control. And that's when I knew I wouldn't be asking questions. I already had the answers. There was no big confrontation, no screaming match, no kitchen table standoff with red eyes and raised voices, no dramatic showdown like you'd expect in a movie. That's not how it happened. By the time I had the proof, I had already let go of the need to hear her say it. I didn't need her to admit anything. I didn't want a confession soaked in half-truths or some last-ditch version of events designed to salvage her dignity. I was past that. When betrayal becomes fact, the silence that follows carries more weight than any apology could. The next morning, I woke up before her. She was still asleep or pretending to be, curled on her side, facing the window. I watched the sun creep through the blinds and light up the edges of our room. For a second, I felt like I was looking at a photograph. Something old. Something no longer real. I didn't feel the need to shake her awake and demand anything. What would be the point? I got out of bed, showered, dressed, and went about my morning routine as if it were any other day. But in the back of my mind, Something had already shifted into motion. I knew exactly what I had to do. First, I opened the top drawer of our shared dresser. That drawer had always been a sort of neutral zone. Home to loose change, our passports, spare keys, and the little velvet ring box we hadn't touched since our wedding day. I opened it. My ring had left an indentation in the fabric. A perfect circle like a scar in the cloth. I picked it up, turned it once between my fingers, and then set it back in the box. It didn't feel sad. Felt precise. I closed the box and placed it gently in the drawer, right next to the manila folder where we kept mortgage papers, insurance forms, and tax documents. Then I closed the drawer. Next, I sat down at the kitchen counter with my laptop and started closing doors. Shared bank account? Logged in, removed her access, scheduled a meeting with the bank to separate funds. Streaming subscriptions? Changed the passwords. Cloud storage, photo albums, utility accounts, joint grocery app? All reset. I didn't do it with anger. I did it with a strange sense of relief, like cleaning a room that had been cluttered for too long. Each step was deliberate, me choosing what stayed and what went. By noon, I had already spoken with a lawyer. Quiet voice, no urgency, just facts. I need to prepare separation paperwork. There's no custody, no children, just the house and joint property. Yes, I have proof of infidelity. Yes, I'm aware of what that allows under state law. No, she doesn't know yet. Not officially. He offered to recommend a mediator. I said no. I didn't want dialogue. I wanted distance. I started packing that afternoon. I didn't take everything, just what mattered. My tools, the ones my dad left me from the basement. My watch, the one he wore every day until the week he passed. Some clothes, the books I actually cared about. My files, a few photographs from before things got complicated. And the dog, who had started following me around like he already knew. I didn't write a note. Didn't leave a letter on the fridge or a typed-up explanation with bulleted lists of what led to this. I wasn't interested in defending myself or giving her the satisfaction of knowing how much it hurt, because that was the truth. It did hurt, more than I let on. But pain doesn't always need to be performed. I didn't say goodbye, didn't slam doors or break things or wait for her to come home so I could watch the reaction on her face. I just loaded the car, took one last look at the house we used to call ours, and drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. When she got home, she would find space. Not revenge. Not a mess. Just absence. The ring would be in the drawer. The accounts would be locked. The rooms would be quiet. No shouting. No closure. No story to twist or soften in her memory. Just silence. And that, I knew, would be louder than anything I could ever say. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. She probably thought she had time, that I'd sulk, spiral, maybe send her a late-night message begging for clarity. That I'd stew in silence while she figured out how to handle the situation. But she underestimated how quickly I'd move once I made up my mind. The first wave hit her professional life. See, her job, the one she always said meant everything, was built on image. A curated version of her. Polished, capable, emotionally intelligent, brand safe. She worked in client development for a large firm, the kind where executives are expected to live cleaner than their spreadsheets. Every holiday party, every conference, every email signature, it all revolved around trust, reputation, and I had the documents, receipts from the hotel, printouts of timestamp texts and location data, parking lot footage, screensh *TS of conversations she didn't know were still stored in our shared cloud folder. I didn't need to embellish any of it. I didn't even attach commentary. Just a clean envelope, labeled with her name and a cover sheet. For internal review, conflict of interest/misuse of company resources. It didn't go to her boss. It went to legal. I knew how her company worked. She told me enough over the years. How seriously they took ethics violations. How messy internal affairs got when clients were involved in anything remotely scandalous. And most importantly, how much they hated being surprised. She'd once described a coworker who got terminated for improper conduct after using company funds to expense personal dinners. So when I discovered that her seminar weekend overlapped with a billable client trip, same hotel, same account code, the rest practically wrote itself. I wasn't out to destroy her. Not completely. But I wasn't going to shield her either. She'd made decisions. And now she would live in their aftermath. The second wave came from inside her own circle. She always thought she was the center of it. Her friends, co-workers, her curated social world. She wore them like jewelry, carefully chosen, intentionally placed. She controlled the narrative. The loving wife, the professional powerhouse, the woman who had it all. But appearances are fragile. And betrayal, when handled correctly, is viral. I never posted anything publicly. Never dragged her name through the mud. But I did speak, quietly and with precision, to the people who mattered. Her family, 2 of her closest friends, a couple mutual acquaintances who'd asked how we were doing. Each time I told the truth. Not the dramatic version. Just the sequence of events. The club. The receipt. The footage. My decision to leave. I didn't speak with anger. I didn't exaggerate. And that was what made it real. Because when someone who's been cheated on doesn't scream, doesn't beg, doesn't melt down, when they just present the facts, people listen. Her parents were the first to reach out. Not to me, to her. I didn't hear what was said. But I didn't have to. Within days, I received a text from her sister. Someone who once told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her. It read, "I'm so sorry. None of us knew. You didn't deserve any of this." No mention of her. Just me. I read it once, didn't respond. Her friends split. The ones who were there for the wedding, who clinked glasses at our engagement dinner, half of them disappeared. A few messaged me with awkward condolences. Others unfollowed her quietly. The truth has a way of rearranging loyalty. But the part she really didn't expect was Ethan. Because while she might have seen him as a secret, I had a feeling their connection ran deeper. So I looked him up. Not on social media, his pages were all private, but through professional databases. LinkedIn, company rosters, conference guest lists. And guess what? He wasn't just some guy from the club. He worked in procurement for one of her clients, a company she'd been trying to land for nearly a year. They'd met before, multiple times, in a professional setting. He was on the client-side team, which meant everything that had happened, the trip, the drinks, the hotel, could now be interpreted a very different way. Not just personal misconduct, but professional compromise. I added that to the envelope. I didn't follow up, didn't press for a response. But a few weeks later, word got back to me through a mutual acquaintance. She'd been placed on leave pending investigation. By then, I was living in a temporary rental out of town. Quiet neighborhood. Mostly older couples and retirees. No questions, no sideways glances. Just space. She called me once during that time. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice shaking, trying to sound composed. "I think we need to talk. Things are complicated right now. I didn't expect any of this. Please, just let me explain." I listened to it exactly once. Then deleted it. There was nothing left for her to explain. She wasn't sorry when she was hiding it. She was only sorry now that it was unspooling. Now that people knew. Now that the version of herself she spent years building had end to fracture in places she couldn't control. That's the part she never saw coming. She thought the affair would live in a bubble. That she could step out of our marriage for a thrill, then step back in when it was convenient. That I would break quietly and disappear without disrupting her world. She didn't anticipate what would happen when that world turned and looked at her differently. She'd always prided herself on control. Her schedule, her image, the way people saw her. She curated her life like a brand. But brands are brittle. And when the truth finally touched hers, it didn't whisper. It echoed. A few days later, I received a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside were photographs, not mine, not hers. Old images, different cities, different angles. In some, she was walking into buildings alone. In others, with Ethan. One was taken through the window of our home, from the outside. That one hit me the hardest. Someone had been watching her long before I ever suspected a thing. Long before the club. It wasn't just me who'd been deceived. She'd lost control of the situation, and now I wasn't even sure she knew how deep it went. This wasn't just betrayal. This was surveillance. And whoever sent those photos wanted me to know. She'd been lying to more than just me. The house was in my name. I sold it the week after the paperwork was filed. Whatever was left of her things, I boxed and mailed to her sister. I kept the dog. I kept the quiet. I moved north, to a town without bars or expectations. No one here knows my name, and I like it that way. There are no late-night calls, no awkward run-ins, no half-hearted apologies. She tried to reach out once more, but I never read the message. Some endings don't need words. Some betrayals don't deserve closure. I didn't burn the past. I just refused to carry it with me. The story ended where it should have, in silence. And that's exactly how I left it.